Hey you guys, it is Monday night again, and that means that it's time for
Let's talk about.
And we just want to say hola, buenos dias from Guayaquil in Ecuador. That's where we're coming from, hence the dodgy hats. I don't know.
Not dodgy.
Well, it's not fair. You really rock yours, and I just feel like mine's a little try-hard, but it's a pretty cool hat. Anyway, tonight on Let's Talk About, what are we talking about?
We're talking about the Finca Botanica farm. So it's the Ylang Ylang farm here in Ecuador. It's in a place called Chongong, which is about 45 minutes west of Guayaquil.
Yep. And it's a pretty cool place. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm Jeremy. If you haven't met us before, I'm Jeremy. I'm a oils fanatic now, although I wasn't a few years ago until I met Kim. And Kim is an aromatherapist, and she's also known as
The hot oily mama. Although to Jeremy's students, they think he's the hot oily mama.
They think I'm the hot oily mama. This is the hot oily mama here. Anyway, roll the music.
Hopefully
here we
I've
go.
got enough internet.
Yo,
Should put it closer so you can hear it.
People might misunderstand what
Here we go.
trying to say,
A little bit of Ecuadorian dance moves.
I don't know if they do that. Don't
Sure
they
they
shake?
do. Here we go. What do we sing?
Let's talk about Finca
Let's
Botanica.
talk about the Finca Botanical Farm. Finca Botanical Farm. Oh no, let's talk about Finca Botanical Farm. Finca Botanical Farm, yeah.
Oh, we're hopeless.
Hey, it's good to have you with us tonight. Obviously it's not night time, but we're 14 hours ahead and a day behind, and it's all kinds of craziness.
Yeah.
But it's good to have you here. So we had the privilege of actually visiting the farm on a few occasions.
Yes, we've
over the
been
last
there.
week.
Feels like every day this week.
Yeah, and it's just an amazing place. So take us through it. Well, you take the lead and I'll just bounce off you.
Okay, so Gary Young bought this farm about 14 years ago. He came down here basically to meet with people, and he was interested in buying farm land. As many of you know, Gary was very set on buying land that had never been touched by pesticides or nasty chemicals and things like that, because once it has been sprayed, it stays in the soil for many years, and it takes a lot of rehabilitation. So he wanted to purchase land that had never been touched by chemicals. So when he bought this property, which is over 1,000 acres, he actually paid $200 a hectare for it. It's now worth $2,000 a hectare. So it's gone up a lot in price. And
just by the way, I'll cut in some pictures as we go through. How's that?
Yeah, so
that
that
people
you
can
see,
actually,
yeah.
you guys can see what we've seen.
Yeah. So last week we talked about Palo Santo, which is one of the essential oils that are produced on the farm. So that's a tree, but there are many other plants that are grown on this farm. So this week we're going to talk about some of those. And the main plant that is growing on the Finca Botanica farm is actually Ylang Ylang. What does Ylang Ylang mean?
Ylang Ylang, it's so good they say it twice. It means flower of flowers.
Yes. So what we found really interesting was that Young Living have actually trained all of the Ylang Ylang trees, if you like, to grow their branches in a downwards. So they don't actually tie the branches down. They just go along every day and pull on them so that they begin to grow when they're seedlings in a downward motion. And the reason that they started doing that was because when the workers were going out to harvest the Ylang Ylang flowers, they were reaching up high and putting their necks back and things like that.
Yeah,
and
they actually needed to cut the flowers with a little hook on the end of a stick, so that wasn't good for the workers.
no, so Young Living developed this way of training the trees down. So you'll see in the pictures that all of the branches actually go down towards the ground. They have 320 acres at the property that's under Ylang Ylang. 120 of those acres are plants that are already flowering and that they harvest from, and the rest are actually seedlings. So there's a lot of seedlings, newly planted seedlings. We even saw some seedlings that were planted last year on Essential Oils Day, which was Gary's birthday.
In honour of Gary.
In honour of Gary. So all the students from the school, the Young Living Academy and the farm workers all came out to the farm. It's actually Gary's birthday, and so that's why it's International Essential Oils Day, and they all planted Ylang Ylang trees. And normally it takes 2 years for a Ylang Ylang plant to actually flower, but this particular crop is flowering in 1.5 years. So it goes to show the Gary plants, you know.
Yeah, and when we asked the farm manager about that, he said, yeah, that's because they're planted with love. So yeah, that was a great little story.
Yeah. So on the farm, on an average day, a worker picks about 8 kilos of flowers, and that can go up to anywhere to 35 kilos in the high season, because the flowers actually have to be really yellow when they're picked, and they look in the center of them, and right in the center you can see this little sort of like bud, like I call it a bud, but I'm sure that my friends that are horticulturalists like Fiona is probably going to tell me that it's like a stamen or whatever. Yeah. But anyway, around the outside, when that bit sort of comes away, that's when the flowers are ready to be picked. So there's quite an exact science in when the flowers should be picked and when they're at their highest as far as the quality of the essential oil and the amount of the essential oil. And they're quite yellow. They're as big as my hand. So the farm can actually produce 1,200 kilos of flowers a day in their high season. So it's quite a lot of Ylang Ylang flowers. Now the other thing, I've talked before about jasmine and how jasmine is picked at night because that's when it's high in its essential oil. Ylang Ylang is actually higher in the morning. So the workers start work at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's also to do with the heat here in Ecuador. It's quite hot. And so they work from 6 through till 4. So they're picking, you know, all day, but the flowers are higher in oil during the morning. So you can smell the Ylang Ylang permeate. Like as soon as we got off the bus at the farm, you could smell it. It was everywhere. It just, like Nina Love said that to me. And on the first day that I went there, because I went sort of straight from the bus into the into the spa, Nova Vita Spa, I didn't really smell it that much. But when we actually went onto the farm, you could smell it. So
yeah, it does permeate the whole atmosphere. It's beautiful.
Jeremy actually got to participate in the distillation process. Do you want to talk about how they put the flowers into the cooker?
Yeah, so, and we'll show some pictures, but it was interesting because there's 2 different types of cookers on the farm, and we'll show you some pictures of the big ones, and I mean they are like big, serious, massive cookers, which they pack all the plant material in. So we saw them actually cooking Ocotea leaves and twigs. But when you go downstairs into the distillery, the ones that they use for Ylang Ylang are actually quite small, and they discovered that was because if you tried to distill too much of it at one time, the flowers would compress and it just wouldn't work as well. So they have smaller, they're kind of cute little distillation cookers down there, and they actually use trays in levels, again, to stop the Ylang Ylang flowers compressing and not distilling properly.
So they're like wire mesh.
Yeah.
Like what I put in my dehydrator.
Yeah, so I actually got to load up some of those, and we
spill it all over the place.
Yeah, okay. So
but the steam in these baskets, the steam actually goes through at a consistent rate, whereas when they were just packing it all in like they do when they distill other plants, they would end up with chimneys or columns of steam coming up, and not all of the flowers were equally distilled.
So again, they carefully control the process. I think that's the key thing, is they've done this for a long time, carefully control the process, the temperature, the pressure, and the time that they distill it, so they get the absolute best. The other interesting thing about that, and we talked to one of the staff there about this, some companies use a process called fractional distillation, which is where they'll take the first amount of Ylang Ylang essential oil that comes off, which is like they consider the highest quality.
Well, not in terms of quality, but it's the highest perfume. So it has all of the aromatic constituents in that first lot in the first hour.
So some companies will take that off and they sell that to the perfume companies to use, and then they'll market the rest of what's left over, the rest of it, as the Ylang Ylang essential oil. Young Living doesn't do that. They have one pipe that goes down from the Ylang Ylang flowers into the oil collector. So again, you're getting the whole Ylang Ylang oil.
Yep, that
So,
beautiful perfume from
yeah.
the beginning right through to all of the constituents
Yeah.
are going into that bottle.
Yeah.
So, and it's definitely the essential oil of love.
Indeed, it is.
Great for creating a romantic setting. So, if you want to, spice things
it up,
up,
yeah.
you can buy
Yeah.
a bottle of Ylang Ylang and pop it into the diffuser.
And in some cultures, they'll actually, on the marriage night, they'll strew them over the marriage bed. So it's beautiful. Yeah.
And speaking of romance, one of the other things that they grow on the farm is actually cacao. And we all know that cacao is a bit of an aphrodisiac. With the cacao, they have 11 acres of cacao growing there. So they pick the fruit and they cut it open, they take out the pods from inside and they put them in a big bucket and they ferment them. And they ferment them for a few weeks. I didn't know that cacao was actually fermented. Did you know that?
I did know that. Yeah.
There you go. I didn't know that. And then they get them out of there, they dry them out, they roast them, they grind them, and then that turns it into the powder. And so they actually gave us little bags of powder. I don't know whether we're going to be able to bring that back to Australia given quarantine, but we'll declare it. And if we do, we will have some of the powder to try at
Did
home.
you chew one up?
I did. I actually liked it.
Yeah,
I
I chewed it up. Did you notice it's purple?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So a cacao pod is purple.
There you go. So they do grow cacao on the farm. They grow Dorado Azul. Do you want to tell the story about Dorado Azul, or do you want me to, about how they found it?
Oh no, you go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually a weed that grows here, and a weed is really just a plant that's growing in the wrong place, but it was growing
Well,
throughout.
it's actually a plant that it's just not fulfilling the purpose that you want it to fulfill.
Yeah,
Is it?
so it was growing here on the farm, and the workers kept treading on it, and they could smell this sort of aromatic plant, and I thought, I wonder what that is. So this particular worker went looking for it, and he eventually found it, and they thought, well, let's distill it and see what it does and what properties it has and all that kind of stuff. It's actually, been used in countries all throughout South America, and even I'm pretty sure in Asia, for all kinds of things. Like in modern day, we would use it as great outdoors spray. So if you want to add a few drops to your citronella and things like that, it works really, really well. So, and I guess on another funny level is that it's an oil that allows you to go with the flow, and I thought that was particularly funny because the workers on the farm are so easygoing. Nothing was a problem, and it must be because they breathe in the Dorado Azul all the time. So
I think we need more of that.
we need more. So if you have someone in your life who needs to go with the flow more, you should get them some Dorado Azul.
Yeah.
They only grow it here in the wet season from January to April, so there was none actually planted when we were here, and it's why even the Dorado was the Palo Santo trees that you saw in the footage from last week, they haven't got any leaves on them at the moment. Here it's really dry, and because it's the dry season, a lot of the plants weren't in flower, or unless they're watered or irrigated by the farm workers. So Dorado Azul wasn't planted, but they plant it in January and grow it through April and then harvest it.
But we could see the hills where
Yes.
they're about to, the ground had been prepared for them to plant the Dorado Azul.
So they grow two grasses in particular, lemongrass and vetiver. Now they actually told us that lemongrass is kind of like a weed here.
Literally a weed. It
Yeah.
grows in everyone's backyard.
Yeah, and they can't, they want to get rid of it, but they grow it here and they harvest the lemongrass, and they also harvest vetiver, which is a weed as well. Oh, sorry, not a weed, it's a grass as well. And obviously lemongrass is great in cooking and great for rubbing on tired ligaments after exercise, but make sure you dilute it because it's a hot oil. Vetiver, great for calming down, overactive children, helping them to focus, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of research around about vetiver and how good it is for calming children. What else? Oh, they grow Mastrante. So
I know nothing about Mastrante. In fact, I couldn't even pronounce it originally, but tell us about that,
grounding,
because it's
calming.
Yeah.
Once again, even something that you could add to your great outdoor sprays, but mostly it's very but even like if you're having a down day, great for popping in the diffuser. So but very grounding and calming. They grow eucalyptus blue, and if you go back and watch our video that we did about the different kinds of eucalyptus, you'll find some more information about eucalyptus blue. But it's basically a natural genetically modified tree, if you like. It wasn't that man genetically modified it. It just, two species of eucalyptus grew close together in Australia.
They liked each other.
Eucalyptus
A lot.
globulus and Eucalyptus citriodora, and
a romance story.
they formed a new tree, and it was called Eucalyptus blue. So Young Living has bought the trees from Australia over here, and they grow Eucalyptus blue because it grows really well on the farm.
And it has quite unique properties compared with the other two. doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oregano, but the oregano over here is so different, wasn't
Yep.
it?
So check out the pictures.
Yeah. The leaves are
They're
really
fat.
big, like not like in Australia where our leaves, like I've grown oregano heaps before, and the leaves are really little. Over here the leaves are big and they're fat. Like, yeah, it's quite a different species of oregano to what we have, once again, grown over here in the wet season. So there's a lot of activity happens here as far as the growing of plants in the wet season, because at the moment it's so dry. But
And
really,
we've been surprised at the lack of rain. So we haven't seen any rain really, apart from a couple of drips.
I guess one of the oils that we were most excited about, and we actually got given a bottle of this. So if some of you want to come around and smell it, we've got 2 bottles of this really exciting new oil. So this is a brand new oil that Young Living is experimenting with. It's very, very similar to Melissa. Okay, they have nicknamed it Peace Tea on the farm, or Tea of Peace, but it's citric Lipia Alibaba. You say it.
Alba, I think.
Alba.
Albra.
I'm not good on the Latin names. So it's a really, really exciting new essential oil. They've done a little bit of testing of it so far. It even smells similar to Melissa, but as far as the constituents go, it's quite similar. So Young Living is really hoping that that this experiment works, and that we can have an oil with similar properties to Melissa that's available for a lot cheaper than what Melissa is. They're even growing Melissa over here in Ecuador.
Trying to grow it.
Yeah. So they've planted some plantain trees, which to me just look like banana trees. Even the fruit looks like banana, but it's not as sweet as banana. It's more like potato tasting kind of thing, and they turn it into all kinds of like
It is like
food,
like the potato. It's like the basic food source in many South American countries.
Yeah, so they grow these plantain trees to provide shade to the Melissa underneath. So they're experimenting with that. They're doing lots of experimentation over here. Like we saw whole patches of where they're trying different things to see what grows well and what doesn't. The other thing, they don't grow it on the farm, but they grow it, I think it was 6 to 8 hours away from here, and it's Ocotea. So Ocotea is in the cinnamon family, smells like cinnamon, tastes like cinnamon, great for cravings, particularly if you're a fan of sugar, just adding Ocotea to your drinks and to your food, it's great, or even diffusing it.
Great for lowering GI on foods too. Can I say that?
I'm not sure. But
I
you
can.
already
I
have.
just did.
So they truck it down here and they distill it. So we were actually lucky enough to see the distillation process.
Yep.
When any of the plant material, but in particular we saw it with the Ocotea, they pull the Ocotea out of the cookers and they take it up sort of, further in the farm. They lay it out, they mix it with the goat manure. They have goats on the farm, which they provide the milk for the workers in the restaurant. So Young Living actually has 160 workers a day, and they feed all of those workers in a restaurant. They give them all lunch, and many of them they bus in, or they have accommodation where the workers live on site. And
many of the workers' kids go to the Young Living Academy too, which is exciting. So we'll talk about that
next week.
Yeah.
So in terms of the manure, they mix it with the goat manure, and then they leave it out to rot for a little while until it gets to a pH of 6.5. They then get it, and this is the exciting bit for me, because when I was at school, I did 3-unit agriculture in year 12, and my 3-unit agriculture major project was on the effects of worms on different soil mediums. So I am a huge fan of worms. We have a worm farm at home. Jeremy loves putting the compost in the worm farm.
I do.
So I was really excited. They basically, as I say, mix the plant material. Nothing goes to waste. Totally sustainable, environmentally friendly. They get all the plant material, they mix it in with the manure. They then feed it to the worms. They've got big worm houses.
I was going to say, when we talk about a worm farm, we're not talking about a little box out the back We'll show
These
you.
were
You'll see it in the pictures.
massive,
Yep.
massive, long, like even every square metre has 8 to 10,000 worms in every square metre. And there was like,
Yep.
I don't know how many
Yeah,
square metres.
it's like
but
25
lots.
metres long and there's 4 of them, I think. So,
Yeah. And that's how they make their organic fertilizer, which is then put back onto the plants that they grow on the farm.
Yeah.
So that's super exciting because, as I say, nothing goes
Circle
to
of
waste.
life, baby.
Yeah,
Circle of life.
they really do recycle everything, even down to the floral water. So while we were there, we saw, as we said before, Ocotea, but we also saw Ylang Ylang being distilled. The floral water, which is so when the steam rises and falls back down, the steam cools and the water is on the bottom and the oil is on the top. They scoop the oil off and put that in the bottles for testing and bottling. And the bottom stuff, the floral water, gets pumped into the spa baths at the Nova Vita Spa, and I got to experience that. I got to lay in that for half an hour, absolutely just smelling Ylang Ylang. I put my hair in it as well so that my hair smelt for Ylang Ylang, and I didn't want to wash it for days because every time I was going like this, I could smell the Ylang Ylang. So anyway, as I say, so I'm so impressed with this farm.
Yeah.
It is everything I imagined that it would be in terms of sustainability, environmentally friendly. They look after their workers like I couldn't believe, and the workers were so happy. They loved Gary, they love working there, they're treated really well.
Yeah.
You know, it's an amazing place.
It's everything that you want to see in a big company. You know, it's like the heart, really, and access all areas. So the farm manager says, you go wherever you want to go.
They
You
gave
look
us
at
ATVs,
anything.
Yep. Like little quad bikes.
You ask any question you like, we'll answer it for you, honestly. So it's so impressive, that whole notion of seed to seal. We literally watched the whole process from planting through to harvesting through to distillation. So the only thing we didn't see was them putting it in the bottles. But and we've seen that in other places. So it is just so impressive, and the integrity is there all the way through.
Anyway, I hope we've inspired you to want to come over and visit the farm here in Ecuador. It's called Finca Botanica. You can look it up on the Seed to Seal website and learn more about the farm. It is truly a life-changing experience to
Absolutely.
come here to Ecuador, to see everything. I can't wait till next week to tell you all about the Young Living Academy and the work of the foundation. 'Cause that,
Are we going to cry?
I'm going to cry already, because that is truly life-changing. So anyway, we'll see you all next week.
Right, see you guys.
Bye guys.